Hello YouTube, I'm Bronny Stevani and I'm going to share with you a quick little tip I learned. So old music, specifically 40s and 50s kind of recordings, are hard to recreate, like the sound of it, like the old-timey crispiness of it. And there is like a lot of software that can help you achieve this, but the problem is most of it is like really expensive, or it just doesn't sound completely authentic. So I'm going to share with you a quick little tip that I learned that makes it sound, I think, really authentic. So loaded in here is a orchestra cover of the overworld theme from Super Mario World. And I felt the composition sounded pretty old-timey, and I really liked it. But it sounds new, like with like modern microphones and stuff, or at least at the time it was recorded. So let's give it a listen. And it sounds really nice and kind of old-timey, but it sounds nice and clean, and you can hear everything. And so I'm going to show you how to make that sound old-fashioned. So we're going to use what's called a match EQ. So it pretty much takes the overall EQ of the selected audio you record into it. You could do audio, MIDI, pretty much any sound. And then you add a secondary sound. In this case, I'm doing "If Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got That Swing," an old jazz song. And notice this one, the EQ is a lot more, there's a lot less bass and high end. Well, maybe not really the high end, but there's at least a lot less bass. So when I click match, it kind of merges the two EQs to make the input sound like the reference. And that sounds like this. And that's already starting to sound a lot more old-timey. For comparison, this is without. Yeah. And the second thing we're going to do is add a plugin called Vinyl. Vinyl is by Isotope, and it's a pretty good vinyl simulation plugin. This is what it sounds like with vinyl. So that's what vinyl is. And if we combine the two, it sounds like this. I want to create a kind of 1940s, 50s kind of sound. So I have it set to mono, set to 1950. I have wear at 13%. I have like a little bit of dust, not too much. Tiny bit of noise, and a little bit of warp. You definitely do not want too much warp, unless you really want that sound. Please note that all these settings will change depending on what you want to do and what your input audio is. Now this is already sounding pretty authentic, but I'm going to take it one step further and add a second match EQ. Note that now the EQ is much smaller, with a lot of mids and not hardly any bass or high ends, especially compared to what it originally was. Now I'm going to take a second old song and use that as the reference. In this case, I'm going to do Smile, Darn Your Smile. And so this is what it sounds like with two match EQs with the vinyl sandwiched in between. Also note that it's pretty quiet now. You're definitely not going to want to make it any louder from before the vinyl plug-in, or else because of the wear, it's going to get a lot more kind of distorted sounding, like this. Unless you want that sound, I wouldn't really recommend doing that. So what I would do is I would add a gain after the vinyl. Make sure it's after the vinyl if you don't want that distorted sound. And now it's going to sound like this. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video taught you something. God bless.
Yes.